everybody. And David, Daniel, I'm sorry. It's good to see you. This is actually the year 4 of Stream On. It's the first time we've ever done a YouTube video, and it's not going to be the last. There'll be more. And looking forward to it. Looking forward to taking questions. Looking forward to talking television. Looking forward to making sure my light is in the right position so I don't fade in and fade out. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on today, okay? We have the NBA having record ratings on NBC, on TNT, and on ESPN. Hockey also. And you're from Texas. Nice to meet you, Katie. Good to see you. Always good to have Texas in the house. And anywhere else but Texas. Whereabouts in Texas are you living, Katie? I have a lot of friends and family in Texas, in the San Antonio area. And I used to work in Houston. So there you go. Yeah, I was just saying that TNT and ESPN are having great times on both the NBA and as well on NHL. Ratings in Houston. Okay, yeah, I used to work for Home Team Sports there. I used to do the Astros and the Rockets, and occasionally a University of Houston football game, and Rice, and some of the old Southwest Conference teams. So I definitely know that area well. It's a wonderful place, and enjoyed, being there. So from that standpoint, the Houston Astros may join with the Rockets and have their own channel next year that they will control. So that's part of what we can talk about today. Here to answer your questions, but also to give you some interesting stuff. Now, I thought it might be fun. We got a list of the top, announcers and what they're paid. So let me run through that for you. It's really kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. So let's go from 10 down, okay? The 10 highest broadcasters. Right now, Jim Nantz at $10,500,000. Jimmy gets, he's in the 10th spot. He basically does the NFL and PGA, which you all know. He has left the NCAA tournament, and that's going to be Ian Eagle's job. So at the number 10 spot is Jim Nantz, CBS, $10.5 million. Number 9, that's Stephen A. Smith, ESPN, $12 million. Number 8, at Amazon, that would be Al Michaels, $15 million. Joe Buck at ESPN, also $15 million. Curb Street, who is at ESPN and also, of course, with Amazon, $16 million. Michael Strahan, who's with ABC and Fox, ABC for his work on Good Morning America and other shows. Fox for, of course, his pregame. And he's in the number 5 spot at $17 million. Troy Aikman, who is the booth buddy of Joe Buck at $18 million. Romo also at $18 million on CBS. Jim Rome, Romy and his radio show, and also things he does on CBS. $30 million. And topping it all off is someone who has not been on television yet. That's right, Tom Brady at $37.5 million for Fox, and he hasn't done a broadcast yet. So there you go. All right, Katie, what would you like to know? Yeah. What would be a hot mess? That would be a hot mess. Yeah. Oh, you mean having the Rockets and the Astros together, Katie? That could be. But, you never know. They may get along. What we're seeing is going back to the future, as the old saying goes. Back when Katie, when I was in Houston, the Astros and the Rockets used to also be on Channel 20 and on us, which was HSE, Home Sports Entertainment. And you're saying it's that way now. Okay, cool. And say, a big question for you later. What's the implications of local streaming hybrids for the future of college sports and media rights? That's a good question. I think if you're talking about what we're talking about here, where you've got a broadcast station airing some of the games, and then local streamers or regional, call it regional streamers, right? It might be good. I honestly think it is good, because when we started this process back in the 70s and 80s, it was, you would get Raycom and Metro Sports and a number of other regional sports companies that would do a Saturday game of the week leading into what ABC or CBS was going to do that day. So let's say you lived in ACC country, you lived in Big Ten country, or you lived in, any one of the major areas there. You would get a game, an early game, and it would be syndicated on a group of TV stations. And, you got a chance to, Raycom. Yeah, Raycom, I used to work with Raycom, loved them myself. Used to cash paychecks from them, so I had to love them. You would get a basketball game or a football game, which they would produce, and it would air regionally on a TV station locally in your market. You got to watch it, have fun with it, and then it was off to the national game. But CFP, what I think that's gonna go back to where we did it. As a matter of fact, I did games all over the country in those days. I did a UCLA game for Channel 5, which now is the new home for about 15 Clippers games. KTLA, it's a CW station in Los Angeles, Channel 5. It's a legacy station. It's been there for, it was the first TV station in Los Angeles, as a matter of fact. So yeah, regional sports, I think, specifically in college, is a good thing, because you get a regional basketball game, you get regional football games, and then you'll watch the national game. Now, what will likely happen, because ESPN is doing it, and potentially it would be done by the Big Ten and possibly the Pac-12, depending upon how they work their deal out, right, is that you're going to see the ESPN Plus mantra of, you buy it for whatever, $9.95 a month or whatever. And then your games, if you happen to be an ACC fan, an SEC fan, a Big 12 fan, you'll see those games, and others and other conferences as well. You'll see those games on your ESPN Plus streamer. In Big Ten, likely I would think that the Big Ten will figure out who will handle the Big Ten network and their streaming. And then, of course, the same thing goes for Pac-12. So, yeah, I think that the hybrid combination, going back to the old days, CFP, is where things are going to have, we're going to have fun seeing some of that back again, because it was good to watch it. I know that a lot of people say, well, you got to be on ESPN. That's what, love them to death. I used to work for ESPN too. ESPN, you can sometimes, it becomes a problem sometimes to find your game on ESPN. If every Saturday afternoon you're going to be able to watch, like we said, like Katie said, Raycom, right? You know what station it's on. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to go searching for it. And I think that's beneficial. The other thing it does, and they don't really bring up this too much, CFP and Katie, is that what we do in situations like that is you have a TV station that's now invested in it, right? So the news department, on-air promotions people, everybody is jacking up, the games that are going to be coming on. So you get that promotion, which is extremely helpful in making sure, A, number one, people know where to watch it. B, number two, that it's well covered. You get highlights and such, and all kinds of wonderful things from it. So does that make large metro areas more or less valuable? Large metro areas, depending. Let me say this: it depends on what you're going for. Okay, you want to be available or accessible. Let's say you want to be accessible in New York City, right? Or Los Angeles or Chicago. None of those three cities, none of them are good sports towns. So whether you're, well, let me take that back. Chicago is good if you're watching Notre Dame. Notre Dame gets huge ratings in Chicago. But Northwestern doesn't, and they're in Chicago. The UCLA USC ratings in Los Angeles, if they're playing somebody that somebody cares about, or in New York, please do not get me started. Rutgers, it's nothing. Okay, so that's a fallacy. What's important is matchups and the ability to accumulate a number of rating points throughout an entire region. Okay, that's why the Southeastern Conference and in some cases the Big Ten have been really juggernauts over the years, because they really have invested in their region, and then they can expand out of that region to other markets. Okay, so it's really, to your point, what makes a metro market important is that you have a presence in it. Okay, that you're in there, so you have a bigger pool, if you will, from to draw from. If you were to look at the weekly ratings of NFL football, which is the number one rated sport in the country, and you went down the list of cities, right? The number one city is one of the smallest cities in the country: Green Bay, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Kansas City. Those are your top, like those are like the top five if you move down. You have to go all the way down into the 20s to get New York. Okay, Chicago's up there. Chicago's always in the top five. Sometimes, but not often, LA kind of pushes their way into the top 10. But nah, nothing like that. What we got, Katie? Katie's got a question. You know what? It's a lot easier to read it if I put it on the screen. Okay. I worry about commercial consumption of streaming content, bars, etc. What's going to be problematic for where they place? Like 20 TVs and a ton of people watching. Okay, Katie, here's the deal. What you have the opportunity to do, right, is, let's say you have a bar and it's in you want to watch a Dallas Cowboys game or a Houston Texans game. Those games are gonna be on, DirecTV. College sports also, the DirecTV commercial, they're already working deals. Apple TV's working deals with them, and as well as Amazon and others. So from that standpoint, you're going to be able to see them of that content in the bars just like you would normal. So, and even if it's a TV station, they'll be able to get that in there. They shouldn't have to have 20 or so TVs. Plus, to be honest, think about it. You can take your iPad or you can take your cell phone, and if it's a streaming thing, you can watch it on your phone. So, not that you want to do that in the bar, but point being that it's going to be accessible. So, if your concern is accessibility, don't worry about that. That's going to be fine. Let's see what we got here. Well, streaming is something already is going on. Okay, so they will have to. Bars and restaurants do what consumers want them to do. Okay, so trust me, if they can stream something and they don't have to have a satellite dish on the roof to make it work, it's actually cheaper for them. So we'll see how it works out from that standpoint. But yeah, it'll be fine. They'll figure it out. One of the most important things is commercially, right? You want to be where people are, and people go to bars to watch these things. You want to be there. So 100%, not a problem. It may take a little bit of time to get there, but believe me, they're working night and day. I'm talking about Amazon, Apple, YouTube, because YouTube has the Sunday ticket now, right? So all of those groups are working hard to get those into bars. I believe if I'm correct, and you can check this, just Google if you want. I believe that Amazon reached the 500,000 mark in consumer areas using DirecTV's consumer application, not their home application, but their consumer application. So that's good. So what do we have here? Okay, CFB. Would it be reasonable, profitable for Apple if a major deal with PA to let everyone with an Apple device watch for free or advertise games and pop up ads? Seem like everybody has an Apple product. You know what? I would do that. 100%. Apple can afford. Let's say Apple pays. We're just going to pick a figure. I don't know this to be a figure, but I will. Let's use it. Let's say they pay $25 million per team. Okay, it's a 6-year deal. Apple can consider that like they would a research and development. Okay, and if I were Apple, I would want to give people a free football season or whatever to get you to the point where you are comfortable watching the games on my service. Okay, Apple is going to lose money just like Amazon lost money in the first 3 or 4 years of any deal that they do, whether it's college or pro. You do lose money in the first 3 or 4 years. It just doesn't happen that you get there. Okay, when we did regional sports networks, like we were talking about HSE, we built in that we were going to lose between 2, and 3, sometimes 4 years. We're going to lose money because you have to build an audience. You can't assume that they're going to be there from the moment you turn on the television set, right? So the same is for Apple, and what you want to do is entice people to do it. Now, Apple has 25 million, a little over 25 million subscribers. But in reality, they have worldwide almost 50 million subscribers because T-Mobile and other phone companies around the world have done deals with them, sponsored deals with them, so that if I'm a T-Mobile customer, I get maybe MLB, extra innings free, or I get the MLS for free. Okay, so they could do what you're talking about for the Pac-12 and give you every football game, every basketball game, every women's volleyball game, field hockey, whatever they wanted to. They could give it to you for free, and they wouldn't. Again, the factor is being, let me prove. It's kind of a proof of concept, right? We want to prove that people will get comfortable watching us. Once they're comfortable watching us, then we'll charge them. Right now, we need to get them there. So you have to get eyeballs to fun. So the concept that you brought up of, would they consider, doing something for free? I wouldn't be surprised at all that they would. I wouldn't be surprised that if they are talking about, recruiting problems, right, that they would give out to each school 1,000, free, 1,000 free Apple subscriptions, where if you want to see me, all you have to do is and you get a text. I think you put that in there. You get a text and you click on it, and boom, you're 15 minutes away. You're watching a pregame show to the game that you want to watch, or a game that you said to them that you would be interested in, or that you're just a fan of a specific conference. So if it's the Pac, boom, it's in your phone. You carry around. We could even call it Pac-12 in your pocket, right? So yeah, that's not something that I don't think is a problem. I'm assuming ads are the main source of revenue, not subscriptions. So 120 million people, an Apple device, you would huge draw on advertisers potentially. Advertisers are important, no question about it. And subscriptions, are also important. So, are the ads going to drive the bus. It's easier to get an idea, frankly, on if you're an advertiser. It's easier to get true numbers on subscriptions than it is on cable, because it's a little more difficult to get specifics, because like sometimes Comcast and others do not share their information as readily on subscribers. Because you're watching it, you're watching a streamer on the back. You know exactly who's watching it. You know exactly where they're watching it. I mean, if you're watching on your phone, you're watching on your TV, you're watching wherever you're watching, you're watching it. They know, advertisers don't watch it. So actually, it's a more investing money in streaming for advertisers is easier, because they really get they can know, and they count minutes. Okay, so it's a little weird, but how many minutes of streaming? All right. For instance, there was, on average, those who watched Thursday Night Football on Amazon watched an additional 14 minutes than the average television customer watched. So they were engaged in staying there for an additional 14 minutes. Now, why is that important? Well, it's important because we got back to the commercials aspect. They watched the commercials. They watched the game. They spent time. The other thing, which was a nugget in the Amazon deal on NFL, which was important to them and to the league, is that Amazon versus Thursday Night Football, when it was on Fox and the NFL Network, averaged a much younger demographic. As a matter of fact, it was between 7 and 10 years younger. So, we saw much was made that ratings were not what they were on, Fox and NFL Network. Duh. Again, you're getting people to stream a game versus watching it by sitting down in a normal way of doing it. Your audience is going to drop off a little bit. You got to know that, or even in the NFL. That's the reason it's an 11-year contract, is you have to build that audience. And that's the reason the MLS deal is a 10-year deal. You have to build an audience. And that's why, to your point earlier about the pack, could they give away for a year, or at least a football season or something like that, to you till people got used to it? It wouldn't hurt them to do it, because, as I said, you're looking at a proof of concept. We need to prove to potential, the NBA, or we need to prove to Major League Baseball, or we need to prove to, whomever our next big deal is, that we can deliver an audience. Well, you can't do that if nobody's watching what you're putting on there, and if that means that you have to give it away to get an audience for a while, and to treat the audience and to give the audience what they want, then you do it because it's important. Let's see. What does the media deal look like in Mexico and overseas for the Big 12? Is it included in U.S. contracts? If you're talking about the ESPN stuff, I believe yes. There are certain restrictions. It's not on college. There would be restrictions on Major League Baseball. There would be restrictions on the National Basketball Association. There would be restrictions on any professional sport. Okay. To the best of my knowledge, there is none of that would be on any of the college. So anything they had, SEC, Big 12, ACC, whatever, they could pump into Mexico, or for that matter, all the way overseas, from Japan to Israel, wherever ESPN can be seen, college sports can be seen. So I don't think that's a problem. It's only the professional sports where they relicense to an international audience. MLS went that route with Apple, and so their rights are all with Apple. So worldwide, Apple has all the MLS rights, but otherwise, that's not the case. Pardon me, I'm running out of voice. What do we got? Yeah. Big 12 trying to build an. Oh, I'm sorry. We just read that one. Let me go to Katie. Katie, what you got for me? So no new deals. I'm not quite sure what you mean. No new deals with the Big 12 in Mexico. I think that the deals that Brett Yormark is trying to make in Mexico is more of an event type deal. The TV is nice and that'll be okay, but I think what he's trying to do, Yormark, is make the Big 12 a brand that travels outside the country, okay? And so to do that, I think he wants to put on events. And so an event can make a lot of money, obviously, for the conference. And, just like when you go to the Bahamas for a tournament, or you go to, to Maui for the tournament, those all make money for the people who put the tournament on. It also is great visibility for those people who are involved in the conference. So I think that's where he's going with that. I don't think it's as important on the TV side. I mean, it will be, it's going to be covered, but I don't think that's going to be the big deal for him. I think the big deal for Yormark and the Big 12 is that he's making the Big 12 a global entity as opposed to just something that might be in the Midwest, Southwest area. I think that's where he's going with that from a marketing standpoint. Let's see what we got here. What you got? Katie. Still Mexico. Okay. So I think that's the way they're going with that. It's a very good idea. It's a very good idea. Anytime you can take your brand and take that brand out of the country or to another market or to someplace else where people will, identify with you, that's always a good thing. I remember in 1994 when Commissioner Stern took the dream team to the Olympics. I remember in Barcelona, he was asked, what's your vision for, what happens 10 years from now? And, Stern said, I hope that, there's teams here who will be able to beat us. And I hope that people will know more about basketball, NBA basketball, when it's done. And to his credit, Stern did turn most of Europe into basketball crazy people. Look at all the wonderful stars in the NBA that are here in Europe, and they play basketball in Europe, and it's you can go. I've been in Paris and Rome. You can go into a sporting goods shop in Paris or Rome and get an NBA jersey without any problem. You're not gonna find an NFL jersey or Major League Baseball or hockey, but you're damn sure gonna find an NBA jersey over in traveling in Europe. And same, by the way, in Japan and over in the Asian countries as well. Let's see. Anybody else got any questions here? Having some fun on an afternoon here on a nice. I hope the weather is fine down in Texas way. And got another question. Okay. I think it's American. Sorry, my mouse here is causing grief. Hang on. There we go. Is American football gaining popularity? It is in England and in Germany. there has been, there's been some growth in Mexico, and that's due in large part to the Raiders, the 49ers, in some areas for the Arizona Cardinals, and then of course the Dallas Cowboys when you get down to the Rio Grande area back in that part of Mexico. So I know that they're going to play another game over in Berlin, and obviously they play 2 or 3 games in England. So it's getting more popular, but it's really popular just at this point in time in London and in certain spots in Germany, and obviously Tampa Bay went over there last fall and played a game with Tom Brady when he was playing for the Bucks, and it's growing. Part of the problem, and you guys know this because it's you're fans, is it's a lot easier to create a soccer team or a basketball team because you only have you don't need a lot of equipment to do that. And so for someone to teach someone to play football or to bring them to football, you've got to not only play the game, but you have to get it's costly. So that's why it becomes a problem. In North America, yes, 100%. We're looking at the NFL is king. But when you start to get out of the country, it starts to wane a bit, and that's why we're seeing people start talking about, well, the next big rights deal is going to be the NBA. Well, because the NBA travels, it's out of the country, and you can play. The Lakers and the Warriors could play a basketball game in Paris and then fill the building up. Okay, they could play in Beijing and fill the building up. They could play in Japan, anywhere in Japan, and fill the building up. And the same in Australia. Not necessarily is that the same case for the NFL. Let's see what we got here. Is there a long-lasting effect to playing in those cities? Like fans follow season more closely after the game. Actually, it's not like the circus came to town, right? I do believe, to your point, the reason the NFL is going back and have gone back to London and is going back to Berlin is because you're creating a community, right? You're creating people who may not have known a single thing about NFL football other than what they read, but then the team comes, they play, they do events around town, and it's front page news, and it's on every TV station and every sports station in Germany and around Germany. And so there's an excitement, a buzz level that only works if you go back. If you keep working on that. And I think what back, I don't know if you remember the NFL in Europe, right? When they had the Europe League, there was only actually England and Germany were the 2 places where they had franchises that were, I'm not going to say successful because they weren't overly successful, but they were somewhat successful. It was fun. It was fun to see it. It was fun to be involved in it. And so I agree with the premise that you have that, okay, if you go ahead and take the time and invest and go back and keep having games, maybe go to Munich instead of Berlin, this time. But you stay in the country and you develop that country. And that's what's happened in England, is they've created a buzz in England, and so they can get fans in England. A lot of it's expats, right? We know that. A lot of it's, folks who are Americans who live in England. So it is what it is. But it's it's building a community, and I think that's where they're headed. At least, I think that's where they hope to be headed. Certainly in England and in a couple cities over in Germany at this point. So we'll see how that whole thing plays out from that area. Any further questions, guys? We can talk about I'll pop up a couple of headlines here just to go. Among the people who got axed at ESPN was the producer of The Last Dance, which was one of their highest rated 30 for 30 situations. So we are looking at so it's sad, but ESPN has unfortunately had to let a lot of people go. The Warriors and the Lakers continue to set records for ratings, which bodes well for what we just talked about, which is, of course, the next big contract. Now, Adam Silver would like to see a contract where he gets between $75 million per team. I don't think that's ever going to happen, but you never know. Let's say, question. It sounds like more you play, more people care. Since Mexico is so close proximity, easy to build a brand and interest in multiple events. Yeah, probably. Same for Canada. I think that if colleges were to play like Yormark decided, you got up there for the Big 12. Yeah, I think that it definitely benefits the Big 12 to do there. It benefits. It benefits them to play in Mexico. It also would benefit them to play, in Europe. It would benefit them to play. They've got a deal that they're going to New York, right? So it benefits them to play in areas where people don't know them. All right. If you don't know Baylor and Texas Tech, or if you don't know TCU and Oklahoma State, you're going to want to play in areas where people can get used to seeing them, or at least to hearing about them. And then, as I on Twitter the other day, for some reason, I don't know why it got some people concerned. I said, you have to, before you go to a casual fan, right? You have to get your core fans. Once you get your core fans, because they're the folks that pay the bills, then you can move out and get the casual fans. So I think what Yormark is doing is saying, okay, look, I feel comfortable that we have the base in the Big 12, the base of an audience. I will feel more comfortable now taking us to some places where, we're not comfortable. Basically meaning, they haven't been there, they haven't tried it yet. So, take them up and let them play at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, right? In some of the areas up around there. Bring them to Mexico. Maybe figure out a way to get them to Europe. Notre Dame forever has played a football game, every couple of years in Ireland. Okay. And there's no reason why those types of things couldn't be done by the Big 12. It would be fun for the Big 12, and I'm sure it would be fun for the guys and the women who play men's and women's basketball, is to play some basketball games in Europe. I think that would be, a good thing. So I think that, we got to start somewhere, and they're starting in Mexico, and that's not a bad idea. What we got here? Would it be wise or risky gamble to try to add Mexican university? That one might be a problem. And the rationale behind that is, while football is kind of like tenuous as to what, who's in charge, right? The NCAA isn't really in charge. charge. They say they are, but they're not. But they are in charge of basketball. So I think that might be a little more difficult. It's the same reason you don't see the U.S. Um, play U.S. hockey teams, college hockey teams play hockey teams in Canada. Although most of the really good kids from Canada end up playing hockey in the United States. So I think that what you'll do there is, in honesty, if there's good athletes, then what they're going to do is they're going to come and play at Big 12 universities. So what you may get, because you've played basketball there, you might get baseball players, you might get soccer players, you might get a number of different other players in other sports who are excited about the fact that you're playing in their country. And so they're going to come and play, on your team. So it gets them that, it gets them used to knowing who you are, knowing who the conference is. And so then, as I said before, would it be beneficial for them to have, a university from Mexico in the NCAA? I don't think that's going to happen, but I do think that it's beneficial to, for sure, have your audience in, your school within an audience where people can see you and get comfortable with the university. And for maybe kids who come over and play or just come over and go to school there. I mean, that's a benefit as well. So, from all different angles, it's a great way to sell a university, not just the program, football program, basketball program, any sports program, but to sell the actual university itself. So, it would be worth it there. So, any more questions, gang? So, anyway. All right. Well, look, it's been fun. We spent 42 minutes together, and I've had a lot of fun. I hope you guys have. Thank you both for hanging out, all of you. And do me a favor, click the subscribe button and the hit the bell for notifications, and a like. So, and if you have any comments, that'd be great too. So. Look, guys. Any more? If we have no, we got another question. All right, we'll get that question. I didn't mean to cut you off. Oh, on ESPN, there's really, to be honest, the layoffs at ESPN, were not really. I mean, the sad part is it wasn't any of the big ticket guys. The guys that we just read a list of people who were making, multi-million-dollar contracts. None of those guys, they didn't whack any on-air talent that made any big bucks. I mean, they invested. Remember that ESPN does, as far as Disney's concerned, they do make a profit. Okay, and they do that, but that's because if you think, you remember we talked about bundling cable, they make a profit because they get, anywhere from $4 to $6 depending on the cable system a month from subscribers. Now that's going to start going down. We'll have some guests on here to talk about that, but their cable companies are not going to continue to pay ESPN $5 or $6 when ESPN is, has a streaming service that's in competition with them. So that's going to be something that there'll be less and less of, which is why they have to build the streaming aspect of ESPN Plus. When people are saying, well, it's going to be 5 or 10 years, no, it's going to be faster than that. It's going to be within probably the next 5 years. Why? Because then they can actually have, let's say the cable companies because right now they're at 74 million. Let's say it drops down. I don't think it's going to drop below 50 million. But let's say it stays right around 50 million, right? If you're getting $2 or $3 from them, cable companies, for ESPN, and then you're getting, streaming is bringing you an extra, 50 million people. Well, then you're back in really good positive cash flow. So I think that's where the inflection point is right here. We're in that quasi area of who wants to keep cable, who wants to go streaming, how much are we going to get of both, right? And that's where we are at this point. We don't know what's going to happen, and I think that's why at this point in time, it's very confusing and very very interesting as to where do we go next. I mean, we're going to go to streaming, but how much is too much? And meaning from a price point, how much can I charge you without you looking at me going, I can't pay that? MSG has the Rangers, the Devils, the Knicks, someone else, I can't remember who they have. They're charging them $26 or $27 a month for their service. Yes Network, which has Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Nets, the Yankees, and some other sports as well, charging $25, $26 for theirs. NESN, which is in New England Sports Network, Red Sox and the Bruins, and they're charging $19. So price points, where do you go? If I have my pro teams that I want to follow, and I got the college teams I want to follow, where does that fall into a budget, right? Am I spending $50 or $60 a month on just watching my favorite sports teams? And is that too much, or from that standpoint? So that's that delicate balance that we're going to have to find out, what people want, and go from there. So anyway, well, look, thank you all for joining me this afternoon. We've had a lot of fun, and we'll do this again soon. Let's have a great day, and thank you for your time, guys. We will see you soon, and you can always leave, as I said, leave comments right there or hit me up on Twitter. Okay, guys, have a nice day.